Football can be a crazy sport. When emotions are flying high, sometimes some pretty insane things happen on the field. These are the 20 most ridiculous moments in NFL history.
Bare-chested, somebody stop that man!
Turf on the field, chopped up in the end zone.
Let's start off in Pittsburgh, where one of the most talented lunatics to play the game does something flat out nuts. Antonio Brown catches a punt and takes off. He dances his way around the whole Browns team before stomping the punter in the face mid-run. You can't do that, AB! He looked like he was about to hurdle him, but then decided to drop-kick Spencer Lanning right in the mask with his cleats on instead. This isn't karate. What the hell are you thinking, Antonio? Now that is just ridiculous. But what this next player did was so stupid that he just had to make our list. Next, we go to Dallas, where a young Deshaun Jackson does something so boneheaded, you gotta wonder if he's suffering from early onset dementia. During this play, Donovan McNabb launches a perfect pass down the field and drops it right in the breadbasket of the speedy wideout for an easy touchdown. Right? Nope. D-Jax, for no apparent reason, decides to toss the ball backwards right before entering the end zone. Why, my confused friend? Why? If that wasn't bad enough, he starts dancing around, celebrating like a complete bozo, not realizing that he may have just made the dumbest play in the history of the NFL. Yikes. That last play was pretty dumb, but this next one might have been the most dangerous play in NFL history. This play here has to be the most psychotic play I have seen in my life. Former first overall pick Myles Garrett rips off Mason Rudolph's helmet and uses it as a weapon to smash him in the top of the head with it. Are you kidding me? Myles Garrett is 6'4" and over 270 pounds. He could have literally ended Mason Rudolph's life right on the field. That is so not what the fans are ready to watch. He came down on him like a lumberjack. These guys can be pretty scary. The referees try their best to keep things under control, but sometimes they only exasperate the ridiculousness that takes place on the field. Like in this next moment. When a referee makes a controversial call, it can cause emotions to run sky high. Marcus Peters clearly disagreed with the refs holding call against the Jets. He decides to throw the yellow flag into the stands. A fan catches it. Maybe he thought if he got rid of the flag, the penalty wouldn't count? Peters made a complete fool of himself and was kicked out of the game for acting like a child. Refs making bad calls can cause chaos, but sometimes when they make no call, it causes just as many problems, like in this next one. Rob Gronkowski is one of the greatest tight ends of all time. We're used to watching him dominate smaller defenders and catching touchdown passes from Tom Brady. But here, he did something absolutely ridiculous against the Bills. Cornerback Tre'Davious White played defense a little more aggressively than Gronk felt comfortable with. After grabbing at his jersey twice, White pushed off Gronkowski to intercept the pass. When Gronk got up, he saw no flags on the field, so he decided to take matters into his own hands by throwing a WWE-style body slam on top of the defender after the play is ruled over. At least we can get excited about Gronk being totally qualified for a career in wrestling. These plays are getting wild. But do you know what's completely ridiculous? That you haven't liked this video and subscribed to this channel yet. Come on, what are you waiting for? Antonio Brown to dropkick you in the head? And this next one-on-one matchup was pretty ridiculous too. Whenever Odell Beckham Jr. and Josh Norman played against each other, we expected emotions to flare up. During a game in 2015, however, it got taken to a whole other level. Norman and Beckham spent the entire game trash-talking and throwing cheap shots at each other to the point where their own teammates were telling them to shut the hell up. Eventually, the pettiness reached the level where Beckham responded to a smack on the head by turning himself into a missile and launching himself headfirst, headbutting Josh Norman. This was a super dangerous play that could have given Norman a concussion. The Panthers ended up winning what was a pretty crazy game. Both OBJ and Josh Norman were suspended one game for their ridiculous buffoonery. Beckham and Norman's actions were cringy on the field. Did they know they were on television when they were behaving like that? Our next moment features a player who has broken so many rules, we think that it is ridiculous that he is even allowed in the league. This next play is an example when one of the dirtiest players in the NFL is on the receiving end of karma. Vontaze Burfict has been suspended multiple times by the league for throwing cheap shots at players. This time, he got a taste of his own medicine. Juju Smith-Schuster caught Burfict with his head down and absolutely destroyed him with a vicious hit. Juju got ejected for this ridiculous hit, but maybe seeing Vontaze flat on his back made the crime worth the punishment. That hit made our list because it was so backwards. What are the chances that the dirtiest player would be on the other side of such a ridiculous hit? I guess pretty high when you make so many enemies around the league. Next is a player who literally robbed an opponent right on the field. Aqib Talib and Michael Crabtree used to be two of the biggest trash talkers in the NFL. It's no surprise that when they matched up against each other, emotions would get out of control and some ridiculousness would occur on the football field. In the first round of beef between these two players, Aqib Talib ripped Michael Crabtree's chain right off of his neck. Damn! You can only imagine that a fiery personality like Crabtree would not be pleased about something like this. Next time they played each other, what do you think happened? Talib once again ripped Crabtree's chain off. Come on, dude! This was the last straw and a full-on brawl between the two teams ensued. Crabtree was chasing Talib around the field, trying to catch him with full-blown punches. Can you really blame him? Those dudes are out of control. I'd be terrified of some of these players. They sound out of control. The next player on our list was one of the toughest players in the entire league when he was playing. Sometimes the outcome of a play doesn't tell the whole story. And that is exactly the case when you look at this particular 2-yard run by Marion Barber against the New England Patriots in 2007. Barber got backed up into his own end zone. He had multiple Patriots defenders grab him for what was almost a safety. But he showed off a ridiculous relentlessness and broke so many tackles that we couldn't even keep count. The play was only chalked up as a 2-yard gain, but those who watched it knew it was the most ridiculous 2-yard run in NFL history. Marion Barber was tough as nails. Next up might be one of the most famous blunders ever on the gridiron. How could we make a compilation of ridiculous moments on the field without mentioning the infamous butt fumble? Mark Sanchez entered the league as a highly talented prospect, but turned out to be an awful quarterback. This moment put an exclamation mark on his career. Never mind avoiding the defense, this guy couldn't even avoid his own teammates. He ran face first into his lineman's ass and then fumbled the ball, which gets returned for a touchdown. What a complete doofus. The butt fumble made Sanchez look like a real dumbass. But could you imagine getting pulverized by a man half your size? That's exactly what happened in our next moment. Sean Merriman was an absolute beast for the San Diego Chargers. In 2006, he led the NFL with 17 sacks. And guess what? He only played 12 games that season. Talk about dominant. Merriman was nicknamed Lights Out because when the 6'4", 264-pound linebacker caught quarterbacks, he would put them to sleep. That's why we thought it was ridiculous when 5'6" running back Maurice Jones-Drew put him right on his ass with a huge block coming out of the backfield. Now there is something you don't see every day. Maurice Jones-Drew defied physics with that play, but our next moment comes from a player that had no clue where he was. The 2008 Detroit Lions were a historically abysmal football team. They were so bad that they didn't win a single game the entire season. And this one moment capped off the worst season in NFL history. Dan Orlovsky was near his own goal line when he received the snap against the Minnesota Vikings. And in absolute ridiculous fashion, he runs right out of the end zone for a safety. The man was so lost he didn't even realize he did it. Orlovsky is now an ESPN analyst, and he mentioned that he still gets asked about this atrocious play every single day of his life. As he should. Because an NFL quarterback making a play that bad is ridiculous. Orlovsky's play was straight up embarrassing, but let's be honest, can you really expect more out of Dan Orlovsky? Definitely wouldn't be my first pick as a starter in this league. Our next moment is a blunder by a great quarterback that will never be forgotten. The 2006 NFC wildcard matchup between the Cowboys and Seahawks had a ridiculous ending. The Cowboys, down 1 point, just needed a 19-yard field goal to take the lead with about 1 minute left in the game. But Tony Romo bobbled the snap and took off for a touchdown. He almost made it, but Jordan Babinu caught him just yards short of the end zone. And that was it. The most ridiculous end to the season that you could imagine. One of the weirdest parts was that starting quarterback Tony Romo was also the placeholder for the Cowboys. I mean, couldn't they have found someone who didn't already have to worry about so many other things in the game? Hindsight is always 20/20. Some of these players made our list for making ridiculously bad plays, but this next player made the list for all the right reasons. During a game against the Dallas Cowboys, Odell Beckham Jr. made the most ridiculous catch in NFL history. We don't even know what the most impressive part of this catch was. Was it how he controlled his body like a circus acrobat? Or was it how he plucked the ball out of midair with one hand like he was wearing a baseball glove? Either way, we just couldn't even consider leaving this catch off of our list. If the most ridiculous catch makes our top 20 list, then the most ridiculous run must make it as well. During the 2010 NFC wildcard playoff game between the Saints and Seahawks, running back Marshawn Lynch made the craziest run the sport has ever seen. He turned into beast mode, breaking tackle after tackle. He just wasn't going to be denied, and when he got into the end zone, he celebrated by grabbing his you-know-what as he jumped in the air for joy. But we don't know if the run itself is the most ridiculous part of this moment, or if the fact that the Seahawks fans got so loud when they were celebrating the play that they caused an earthquake. We're not even joking. The fans shook the ground so much it registered on the Richter scale. That makes my ears feel deaf, and I wasn't even there. Those plays are impressive. The NFL has some ridiculous athletes. At number 5, we have a play that clearly didn't go as planned. Every now and then, a team pulls out a trick play that works and the coach looks like a genius. But when it doesn't, he can look pretty dumb. And that is exactly what happened in 2015 when the Indianapolis Colts attempted a trick play on 4th down that just looked flat out ridiculous. Poor Griff Whalen lined up behind center with absolutely no protection. The Colts left that poor guy all alone like a helpless lamb in a lion's den. And he got eaten up faster than you can say, "What the hell are they doing?" We truly believe that the Colts fake punt was the most ridiculous play call in NFL history. But in all fairness, sometimes trick plays work out pretty well. And our next moment is a ridiculous trick play that stunned the Buffalo Bills. In the year 2000, the Bills kicked a field goal with 16 seconds left to take the lead of the AFC wildcard playoff game. They were pretty confident that they had the game wrapped up at that point. The Bills even opted to kick the field goal on 3rd down instead of 4th down because they thought the chances of the Titans scoring a touchdown in the remaining seconds was so improbable. Boy, was that a bad decision, because that poor coaching move allowed for one of the most ridiculous plays in NFL history to happen. On the ensuing kickoff, the Titans ran a trick play in which Frank Wycheck launched the ball laterally across the entire field to Kevin Dyson, who ran it back 75 yards to win the game and eliminate the Bills. Was the ball actually thrown laterally, or should it have been ruled a forward pass? Who cares at this point? The ridiculous play that happened in Tennessee will always be remembered as the Music City Miracle. When a ridiculous play happens in the playoffs, it makes it even crazier. But when a ridiculous play happens in the Super Bowl, it goes down in the history books and is remembered forever. That's why the remaining ridiculous plays on our list all happened in the biggest game of the entire season. The 2017 Super Bowl between the Patriots and the Falcons was an insane game. The Falcons had the game all but won. They were up 28-3 in the 3rd quarter. But they forgot one thing. The greatest quarterback of all time was leading their opponent. Tom Brady orchestrated the greatest comeback in Super Bowl history. The most ridiculous play in the game had to be a juggling catch by Julian Edelman, and we still don't understand how the ball stayed off the field. The Patriots ended up winning 34-28 and earned the third highest spot on our all-time most ridiculous plays list. That game was unbelievable. How could it be topped? Well, let's ask the player who has been Tom Brady's kryptonite throughout his illustrious career. The 2007-2008 Patriots team marked the peak of their dominance. It was likely the most overwhelming Tom Brady-led group in history. They headed to the Super Bowl with a perfect record and only needed to win one more game to put the cherry on top of the greatest season any team had ever had in NFL history. And the Giants had their backs against the wall on 3rd and long in the fourth quarter when possibly the most ridiculous play in NFL history happened. First, Eli Manning dodged a sack deep in the backfield. Now, Eli wasn't known as a particularly good athlete, and that's putting it lightly, so even that part of the play was unexpected. But what happened after that was beyond anyone's wildest imagination. Manning heaved the ball up down into the middle of the field, and backup wide receiver jumped up in the crowd with Rodney Harrison draped all over him and managed to catch the ball in between his hand and his helmet. It was probably the most ridiculous thing I had ever seen in my life. The Giants went on to win that Super Bowl, and the helmet catch by David Tyree will most certainly never be forgotten. I know what you are thinking. How could we ever top the helmet catch? Who knows what earned the top spot on our list of ridiculous NFL moments? The most ridiculous play in NFL history happened in the 2015 Super Bowl between the Patriots and the Seahawks. The Seahawks just needed to punch the ball in from the 1-yard line. They had 3 chances, 1 timeout, and the most powerful running back in the entire league. This wasn't rocket science. They just had to give the ball to Marshawn Lynch and make sure the champagne was cooled down to its proper temperature. But instead of doing the obvious, the Seahawks did the unthinkable. Russell Wilson dropped back to throw a pass from the 1-yard line, and lo and behold, Patriots cornerback Malcolm Butler undercut the pass, picked it off, and the Pats won the game. What a ridiculous finish. There you have it. Those were the 20 most ridiculous plays in NFL history. If you liked this video, give us a thumbs up and subscribe. Also, check out the video up on your screen right now to view more of our great NFL-related content.